I'm Eric Savitz from Forbes. I'm here in Tucson for the Economy Conference, and I'm talking to Art Coviello, the CEO of RSA, which is now part of EMC, but one of the major security software companies in the business. And Art, you were on a panel at the conference here talking about cyberwar. You made some interesting points about the risks that we face as a society and where the risks might lie. How worried should we be about those kind of things?
There are real dangers, and what I see happening, and the potential to happen, is that we move from intrusion, spying that nation states have done to each other for eternity.
Right, so this is the digital version of I've got the secret plans to whatever.
Exactly. We move from that to the next stage, which would be disruption, taking things offline, creating havoc around critical infrastructure, taking things to an extreme on that basis, all the way to destruction. And General Hayden actually had a very pointed comment when the Stuxnet attack was revealed, and he said, and I'm paraphrasing a little bit here, but he said that for the first time in history, in peacetime, one nation attacked another nation to cause destruction to their critical infrastructure.
So that was really the first time we have any documented. I mean, I guess it could have happened in some level where we didn't see it.
Right. That it was widely reported, and it was a question of no one was at war with Iran at the point in time, at least that I'm aware of, and Iran was attacked. So forget about the motivation around preventing Iran from having a nuclear capability. You know, the genie is out of the bottle. Does that, as a result, become some form of acceptable behavior?
Right. So do you think that becomes a precedent where we'll see more of that kind of activity? And does it happen in both directions, right? So a lot of people were not disturbed necessarily about the fact that we disrupted the Iranian nuclear capability, but they certainly wouldn't want to see something happen to us where our infrastructure, you often hear people talk about the threats to the electrical grid or the water system or other kind of critical infrastructure, chemical plants, nuclear plants.
Sure, and those dangers do exist. Again, it really depends upon the individual company, whether it's the power grid, whether it's water supply, nuclear, and how online they are, and how good a job they do with security. But the risk is real. The bottom line is you have to understand who the attackers might be. So let's look at the categories real quick. You have nation states. Well, nation states have adversarial positions. We clearly did in the Cold War. But in the Cold War, we had something called mutually assured destruction. I think at some level, that already exists in cyber. I think that nations know that if I attack your critical infrastructure, then perhaps you could attack mine.
Right, so you take down my power grid,
I'll take out your dam, right? Or something like that, exactly. So what we really have to worry about is non-state actors, which would be the hacktivists community, or other non-state actors like terrorists who have nothing to lose and might want to combine a physical and logical attack. And then the more rogue nation states that might feel they're backed into a corner and need to take action, or perhaps they view that they've been attacked, so they need to strike back in some form or fashion. And I think it starts with probably disruption, because the capability for destruction is pretty advanced, but it will start with disruption. And an example of that were the widely reported DDoS, distributed denial of service attacks on some of the New York banks, which has been attributed to a nation state, although I don't know any of the particulars behind it. But there's another alarming trend that we're beginning to see, because there is another actor on the stage in terms of hacking, and that's the criminal ecosystem that is out there. And again, over the last couple of years, we've started to see for the first time the criminals getting together with nation states. So weird phenomena. The criminals have something of a big data problem. They have so many credentials that they don't know how to monetize them. Right. So they might sell the credentials maybe to a defense and industrial-based company to a nation state. The same might be true of a government agency or one of our elements of critical infrastructure. So that kind of purchase and sale is going on. But what is more alarming is that some of these nation states that don't have the capability, or terrorists that don't have the capability but maybe have the funds, could subcontract the work to the criminals who just want to make money. Right. So we're starting to see a little bit of evidence of that going on as well, and that's quite alarming.
You, during the session this week, you made a comment about the probability of how likely it is that we'll see some sort of disruptive event, some sort of headline grabbing kind of disruption from some sort of cyber attack in the next 12 or 18 months.
Yeah, I am quite concerned that this movement from pure intrusion to disruption is going to continue to advance. And again, you make a prediction, it gets a headline, but I am concerned that in the next 12 to 18 months, there could be a substantial disruption to some part of our critical infrastructure, probably as a result of a DDoS type attack more than anything else. The issue here is that the technology to create these disruptive attacks is getting easier and easier to develop and to launch. Right. And it's our job in the security industry to make sure that we keep up with it and have the defenses to stop those kinds of things from happening.
Well, what was so interesting, and lots of things were interesting about the Stuxnet situation, but one of them was, this was not, it took multiple steps for that to unfold, right? You were talking about this was not a virus of, that's going after a Windows computer. This is a very particular
it was directed at a control system that had to be delivered to that control system. So it was a very
probably by a USB.
Likely had to be some type of physical involvement in terms of the delivery of the virus. Although, again, I don't have specific knowledge of what happened. Right. I'm dealing in probabilities and circumstantial evidence.
Right. But it does. You would think that there would be a simple way in some cases where, some of the infrastructure is not on the web, right? Can you log into the power plant and shut it down?
Not too likely that's going to happen. Right? Yeah, it does focus on attacking control systems in terms of perpetrating a more destructive act. Yeah.
Right. Is there an area that's more vulnerable than another in terms of expecting what might happen if we saw some sort of substantial?
The financial services industry is open in terms of so much of what they do is done online. I would expect these big financial services companies are attacked day in and day out. Right. So I think there's a likelihood that the attacks will continue to be more in their direction. I wouldn't be surprised if it were someplace else, but for now, I think what you saw in New York a couple of months ago, we might see that on a more regular basis. There's certainly big differences between a major money center bank and the capabilities that they're able to bring to bear to protect themselves versus a regional bank. Yeah, there's no question of that. Same is true in a technology company, or manufacturing companies as well. But keep in mind that a lot of this is about headlines. So this is not necessarily, at least in the next stage that I see, this is not about destruction. This is more about getting a headline and disrupting. Right. And you'd have to disrupt on a scale that would be significant enough for people to lose confidence. And that's what this is about, more than anything that is tangible. Is disrupting confidence, and that's why it's so important that we continue to do a better job protecting our critical infrastructure.